Will you come and follow me if I but call your name? Will you go where you don't know and never be the same? Will you let my love be shown? Will you let my name be known? Will you let my life be grown in you and you in me? The lyrics of that song that Howard just so beautifully sang for us sound a lot like the story of Abraham and Isaac from today's passage. God calls Abraham, and not for the first time, and Abraham answers in Hebrew, Hinene. Here I am ready, willing, open to whatever you ask of me. Hinene is the Hebrew word. Each time Abraham hears the voice of God, he responds this same way. Each time God self-reveals a little bit more, and Abraham grows and changes and deepens his trust in their relationship. God has made a promise to Abraham, a covenant with Abraham, an unbreakable, unshakable vow, to birth from Abraham's descendants a people who will be agents of God's peace on earth. When Isaac was born against all odds, Abraham held the reality of God's promise in his arms. But when God calls to Abraham to take his son, his only son, the sign of God's promise and plan for the future, up the side of the mountain and sacrifice him, Abraham doesn't flinch. He says instead, Hinene, here I am ready, willing, open to whatever you ask of me. As moderns, we cringe. Why would a loving God ask such a thing of any human being created in God's image and likeness? But in the time of Abraham, it would not have been an uncommon request from the gods of his world. Parents were frequently asked to sacrifice their children to appease the gods, and did so willingly. Blood sacrifice was part of the culture. Child sacrifice was part of the culture. It was part of the worship. It was what the gods expected of humans and what humans expected to do to keep the gods at bay. Notice I said gods. Abraham lived in a polytheistic world. People believed and worshipped multiple gods. In fact, this passage uses the Hebrew word for God, El, E-L, or Elohim, for the gods who call Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. Elohim literally means gods, the same word used when God said, "You will have no other Elohim before me." This is the gods Abraham would have been familiar with, the gods that expect blood, the gods that demand child blood sacrifice. But there are two different Hebrew words used for God in this passage. One, as I mentioned, Elohim. It is the familiar to Abraham, the Elohim Abraham follows up the hill. And when they get to the place of sacrifice and Isaac asks the question, "Hey, Dad, I see the wood and the knife is here and the fire is here, but where's the sacrifice?" Abraham responds, "Elohim will provide." And Elohim would not have stopped the sacrifice of Isaac. But Yahweh did. Just as Abraham draws the knife to sacrifice a bound and altered Isaac, the word used for God in this passage changes. The voice not of Elohim, but of Yahweh interrupts. "Don't do it," says the messenger of the Lord. "This is not Yahweh's desire for you or for your people or for the world. Yahweh does not demand or want child sacrifice. Yahweh does not expect what Elohim expects. Yahweh requires that you do justice and love mercy and walk humbly with Yahweh." And everyone breathes a deep sigh of relief. Whew. We're so happy Isaac gets to live, but for Abraham, this is a watershed moment. Abraham turns a corner in his relationship with God and understands for the first time that this Yahweh God is not like any other God he has known or any the world has known. Further, in stopping Abraham from killing his son, Yahweh is actually rescuing Abraham from the gods of the world, from his own path, and offers Abraham an invitation not to fear God anymore. It's beautiful. But it's interesting to me that Abraham receives this invitation. The way he receives it is through his obedience to the God he already knows. It's amazing that the whole time that he was showing faithfulness in his duty to Elohim, he did not close himself off to the possibility of God showing him something new, revealing something new. Through each breath, Abraham repeated a prayer, called on the name of Yahweh. Even if his mind didn't acknowledge it, his heart was open, even if just a crack, for the spirit of breath of Yahweh to intervene. And when the voice interrupted, he listened and he learned and he responded, Hinene, I am here, willing and open to whatever you ask of me. I don't know where all of you hearing this message are in your relationship with God, or what new truths might God be revealing to you today. I do know that for the past several months of this pandemic, many of us have felt much like we are in a place of sacrifice, or a place of being stuck, or a place of routine or monotony, perhaps a place of duty, perhaps a place of pain and anguish and loneliness and even fear and dread. I imagine that Abraham experienced all of those emotions and more on his journey up the hill with Isaac and Elohim. And with all of those emotions swirling inside of us, our impulse might be to close up, to shut down, to shut God out. But my friends, take a breath. Be still. Keep going in obedience and faithfulness to what you know and what you feel God is calling you to do. That's all we can do right now. It's all we're called to do right now. The ordinary. Take a breath. Whisper a prayer. Leave your heart open, just a crack. And out of that faithfulness, Yahweh will provide. That I can promise you. When Isaac and Abraham leave that mountain, Abraham names the place of sacrifice. Yahweh did provide. Someday soon we will also leave this place of sacrifice and pain and pandemic. I wonder, what will we name this place? What new truths will God have revealed to us? What will we individually and collectively have learned about what it means to be open to the Spirit's leading? What can we adapt and adopt as far as new ways to be a people of God, the church? I know I say this a lot, but in my heart I believe that God has provided, that Yahweh has provided for this time, for us as an opportunity to grow and deepen and widen our faith and our call, but also to leave behind some of the things that we thought were so important to our identity as a people of God, even perhaps our old understanding of God. In this place of sacrifice, can we allow God to rescue us from those things that encumber, even from our own path, and listen to the voice of truth calling us to a new way of being? Can we respond in the words of Abraham whenever we hear the voice of Yahweh call? Hinene, we are here. We are willing and open to whatever you ask of us. May God bless each of you this morning.